Welcome to this module, Assessing On-Farm Produce Safety Risks, General Practices. This module is part of a series to assist you in creating a food safety program and preparing you for a gap audit. These videos are based off a series of 7 fact sheets available through Virginia Cooperative Extension. Today, we will be discussing the second step, which is addressing the general practices of your operation. All employees are essential to maintaining food safety standards and reducing potential contamination risks. Employees may touch and handle produce, equipment, and packaging. For this reason, their commitment to food safety is key to minimizing contamination risks. Visitors must also understand the food safety practices on the farm as well. In order for employees and visitors to understand their responsibility to food safety practices, you must implement practices that show your commitment to food safety and provide them with the knowledge they need. This includes developing employee health and hygiene guidelines, designating employee break areas, providing potable water for drinking and hand washing, providing clean and adequate restroom facilities, putting up required signage, and training to help employees understand health and hygiene guidelines. We will provide more detail on each of these topics throughout this module. As mentioned earlier, employees' health and hygiene practices directly influence the safety of your produce. All employees and visitors must follow health and hygiene guidelines and practices you develop and implement in order to minimize the risk of contamination to your product. Here are some examples of things to consider with employee guidelines. Anyone who is diarrheal, vomiting, has open lesions that cannot be covered, and/or other illnesses should not handle produce. If employees have cuts or other open wounds or injuries, they should contact a supervisor and receive treatment immediately. A farm should have a first aid kit on hand for employees, and employees should be aware of its location. Farms should have a policy on how to handle and remove produce or food contact surfaces that have come in contact with blood or bodily other fluids. Along with employee health, employee well-being and hygiene is extremely important to food safety. Areas for eating, tobacco use, and drinking anything except water from a non-glass bottle should be designated as a break area. Employees should never eat, chew gum, or use tobacco while handling produce or in areas designated for operation. Potable drinking water must be available for drinking and hand washing. Employees should always have clean hands. Hands should be washed with soap and potable water and dried with a single-use towel, generally paper towels. Employees should always wash their hands before starting to work, returning to work after a break, after eating or smoking, when hands become dirty, and most importantly, after using the restroom. Toilets and hand washing stations must be available for employees and visitors. In order to avoid employees relieving themselves in the fields, facilities should be located within at least a quarter of a mile of work areas, but not too close to where produce is grown, harvested, and stored to avoid spillage or leakage events where produce could become contaminated, like uphill from fields and storage areas. Toilets and hand washing stations must include the following: single-use towels. This could be paper towels, hand soap, potable water, and a catch basin for soiled water. Also, don't forget a trash can or receptacle for the single-use paper towels. Toilets should be cleaned and serviced on a regular basis. This schedule should be based on the size of the farm and the number of employees or visitors. It is important to keep a record of when facilities were cleaned and stocked. Signs should be posted to instruct or remind employees and any visitors of the farm's food safety practices, or show them where important items or facilities are located. Signs should cover topics such as rules for visitors, hand washing instructions, bathroom and hand washing stations, designated break areas, water for drinking or hand washing, chemical storage, first aid kit locations, and off-limit areas, just to name a few. When developing employee signage, consider the following: the location of the sign and that it is visible, that it is easily understood and that it isn't text-heavy, that it is in a language that all employees can understand. Use pictures or graphics for this to help with limited literacy. The most effective trainings occur when supervisors or employers lead by example and adhere to the rules and demonstrate their commitment to food safety principles. Employees should be trained at least once a year. Additional trainings should occur when a policy or practice has changed, an employee has violated a food safety policy, or when an employee is newly hired. Trainings should occur in a language that all employees can understand or with the help of visual aids. It is extremely important that you keep copious records of the trainings. Records should include the topics that are covered in the training, the date, the trainer's name, the name of the employees that were trained, and any supporting documents that were used, such as flyers, handouts, and certificates. You have now completed this module. There are some important steps you should complete before moving on to the next module. You will want to make sure you review the General Practices Fact Sheet found on the course site or on the Virginia Cooperative Extension website. There you will find more in-depth information on the topics we covered in this module, along with supporting resources and documents. At the end of the fact sheet, you will find a checklist that will help you to implement the topics covered in this module. Completing this checklist will help you prepare for the requirements of a gap audit. Once you have completed these steps, you should be ready to move on to the next module in this series, Assessing On-Farm Produce Safety Risks, Pre-Plant Stage.